All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going way, way back to look at the origin story of, well, everything, of society itself. We're heading to ancient Mesopotamia to figure out how a few foundational ideas and inventions literally built the world we're all living in today. So, where do we even begin? Well, let's start with a puzzle. Have you ever actually thought about why an hour has 60 minutes? Or why a circle is 360 degrees? Why not 100? It seems kind of random, right? But it's not. The answer is buried deep in the ancient world. And that's exactly where we're going. Our story kicks off right here, in this amazing stretch of land called the Fertile Crescent. This is the spot on the map where humanity basically decided to stop wandering and start building, something the world had never, ever seen before. I mean, look at it. This whole area, fed by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, was just the perfect incubator for a new way of life. Wild greens were everywhere. Animals like sheep and goats were plentiful. It meant that, for the very first time, people could have a stable, permanent food source. And that one decision, to just stay put, set off this incredible chain reaction. Once you have a steady food supply, you start growing more than you need. That surplus means you can support more people, so the population booms. But now, with a ton of people living together, you get a whole new set of problems, right? Like, how do we keep track of who owns what? How do we settle arguments? Who's in charge? Civilization, you guys, was basically invented to solve these exact problems. And the very first people to really dig in and solve these problems were the Sumerians, around 3500 BC. You can think of them as the original architects of society. They laid down the blueprint that almost every civilization would follow for thousands of years. So, what was their absolute biggest, most important invention? It was writing. The simple need to keep records, to track who sold what grain, to write down the rules, to manage a growing city, sparked a communications revolution that changed humanity forever. Now, it started off pretty basic. You had professional writers, called scribes, who would draw simple little pictures on wet clay tablets. But, as life gets more complicated, you need a faster, better system. So these pictures evolved into this amazing system of wedge-shaped marks called cuneiform. And this was a total game changer, because now they could express really complex ideas. But they didn't stop there. The Sumerians just exploded with innovation. We're talking about the wheel. First for making pottery, then for carts. They invented the plow to make farming way easier, the sailboat to travel and trade, and even architectural arches for their giant temples, called ziggurats. Every single invention was a genius solution to a new challenge of living in a city. Okay, so you've got cities, you've got writing, you've got trade. What's the next big thing you need? Order. You need rules. And it was the next great Mesopotamian civilization, the Babylonians, who came up with the world's first major answer to that problem. Around 1792 BC, the Babylonian king Hammurabi laid down this incredible legal code. And it was all built on this one powerful idea: an eye for an eye. The basic principle was that the punishment should fit the crime. This was a radical idea meant to bring a whole new level of order and maybe fairness to their society. But, and this is a big but, fairness didn't mean equal. Justice totally depended on who you were. As you can see here, if you put out the eye of a nobleman, well, your eye was put out, simple. But if you did the same thing to a commoner, you just had to pay a fine. And for a slave, the fine was even smaller. So yeah, it was a massive step towards having written laws, but it also locked in the social hierarchy of the time. And the Babylonians' obsession with order wasn't just here on Earth. They were amazing astronomers, keeping these incredibly detailed maps of the stars and planets. And for them, this was a mix of science and belief. They used these cosmic maps to try and predict the future, a practice that we now call astrology. So you've built these wealthy cities. You've got laws, you've got advanced knowledge. What's the next big problem you're going to face? Protecting all that stuff from invaders. And this is where our next group, the Assyrians, step onto the stage. They absolutely perfected the art of war and building an empire. See, before the Assyrians, armies were mostly made of citizen soldiers, farmers and craftsmen, who'd grab a spear whenever the city was attacked. But the Assyrians came up with this totally radical new idea, the standing army. These were full-time, professional soldiers who did nothing but train for battle. You give them superior iron weapons, and suddenly they're the most terrifying military force of their time. And they had a whole toolkit for running an empire. They didn't just conquer, they managed. They used battering rams to tear down city walls, set up governors to rule the places they took over. built roads to move their troops and messages fast, and, get this, they even created the world's first mail service for the king to talk to his governors. Phew. So after thousands of years of all this innovation, from writing and laws to professional armies, what does it all actually mean for us today? Well, now it's time to connect all those ancient building blocks directly to our own lives. You can see on this timeline these great civilizations rising and falling over this huge stretch of history. But their ideas, their inventions, they didn't just disappear when the empires fell. No way. They became the foundation for everything that came next, filtering all the way down to us. Hey, remember that question from the very beginning? Here comes the answer. The Sumerians used a number system that was based on the number 60. And that one choice, made thousands of years ago, is the direct reason we still have 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour. And that same base 60 system, that's also why a circle has 360 degrees. It's a fundamental piece of their math that's become a fundamental piece of ours. It's this incredible legacy that we use every single day, probably without even thinking about it. And there's one more. Their incredible stargazing and their careful observations of the moon's cycles led them to develop a 12-month calendar, another ancient Mesopotamian idea that, for a lot of us, is still hanging up on the kitchen wall. So when you put it all together, the legacy is just staggering. I mean, think about it. Almost every major pillar of modern life has its roots right here in Mesopotamia. The idea of a city, writing, laws, math, how we measure time, organized government, it all started there, between two rivers. And that kind of leaves us with one last big thing to think about. If that amazing spark of innovation had never happened in the Fertile Crescent, if those basic building blocks had never been put in place, what would our world even look like today?